turning to, continuous dangerous jobs.
Things that shouldn't happen
Yeah.
in 2023.
Yeah, and I think it's not just in Ohio, but I think yesterday or a couple of days ago there was another train derailment near Detroit. Actually,
I didn't hear about that.
There's been like 4 or 5 over the past few days. The one, of course, that's gotten the most attention.
The one with poison gas that's creating a toxic black cloud that's killing fish and pets.
You know what they should do is send kids in there to clean it up.
Well, if it was in Iowa, or if they could get that law passed in Ohio, they would probably send the kids in there.
It's probably on its way.
Yeah.
So there was a train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah, a vinyl product that's extremely toxic. I think they evacuated like 5,000 people and then blew up the train.
Oh, they blew up the train? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it was a controlled demolition or a controlled disposal, they called it.
And so these chemicals are obviously, in the air, right? They're leaking probably into the ground and groundwater, and they're killing fish. And, it's my understanding in reading some of the backstory on this is that not only were the train workers fighting, the rail workers fighting for, increased wages and days off and things like that.
Yeah.
But they said that their jobs were dangerous in that there were understaffing, and things were not being maintained, and just
those rail workers are talking about it now, saying, it's hard to say that this could have been prevented, certainly if the things that they had asked for, but they were looking for additional staffing, manpower on these trains.
Right.
And to think that you've got a locomotive filled with things that are this toxic, extremely toxic, and there's 2 people on the train, and the workers want one more person.
Of
and
course.
In this case, it was Norfolk Southern Railroad is saying no, and they're profiting. I mean, all over the news lately, there's been talk of the insane profits of all these railroads,
right?
Mostly because of the contract that they just had forced down their workers' throats. But in this case, they're shuttling toxic chemicals, unsafely, and still making these enormous profits because they just don't have enough people out there trying to make sure that they can do this safely.
And I don't understand the rationale, and maybe somebody out there can explain it to me. And that is,
I think they want to make more money.
That's all it is, right? I mean,
the
do
simplest
you really not want to
explanation.
hire one other person? Because look, at some point, right, this toxic spill is going to cost the railroad money. Now, graciously, they offered $25,000 to the town, which
for the 5,000 people that got evacuated, so it's $5
$5 a person.
Yeah,
and of course they said that's a misnomer. We offered that money. It wasn't to offset families. We're actually giving each family $1,000.
Okay,
so $1,000
to replace or bury their pet who died, and maybe go help a little toward buying the next
dog.
Or
get the other lung that you're going to need now, and you should chop off the third ear that you grew because of the toxic spill.
Yeah, they go back like, you can drink the water, everything's fine now. Okay.
Didn't they say that in Flint too?
I think they did.
Yeah, drink the water. Well, how about this? You go first.
Drink it, just don't put it near an open flame. You can drink it as long as you don't have a mouthful of fire.
Don't swallow it.
Yeah.
I mean, but once again, these are dangerous jobs. They're jobs that require an amazing amount of skill and ability. It's not just like you show up, get on the train, and the train moves,
Right.
And these kind of accidents, in my humble opinion, can and should be avoided.
Well, I think seeing that this can happen and has happened, steps have to be taken to, if you have to put more people on the trains, then that has to be done.
Right.
It doesn't, shareholders be damned. It doesn't really matter, whether this is going to impact the stock price or, the value going to a CEO, because everybody lives near some railroad. And if this is going on, I think this is opening the eyes to a lot of folks that, that train that you're sitting there waiting when you're on your way to work, you don't know what's in there. But it turns out it could be something that if that train goes off the rails, it could kill you.
Imagine that, though. I mean, that this is being driven by stock price. Like, who cares? This is where, unfortunately, capitalism falls down, right? If the stock market, which, by the way, is not an indicator of the economy, the stock market is geared towards making rich people richer, right? The average working class person does not have a $10 million stock portfolio.
Yeah, I think the most recent numbers were that 50% of all American workers own zero stock.
Imagine that.
Right.
Yeah. So if that's what this is being driven by, and you're not paying attention to safety, or you're short shrifting, or you're cutting corners, or things like that, and accidents happen because of it, well, shame on you. And there needs to be, the government needs to step in and fine the crap out of these companies. I mean, or you lose your license to practice. Like, if you're a lawyer and you commit malpractice and blah, 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 and you do this, that, and the other thing, you lose your license, right?
Yeah.
If you're a doctor, you can't practice, if you don't, hit certain benchmarks and, make sure that you're not killing people.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think this is an interesting situation. You raise a good point, because if the government has the authority to step in with the railroad companies and say, hey, workers,
here's your contract.
You don't want this contract, but you have to take it.
Right.
Then the government should, on the other side of the coin, be able to say, hey, you caused a reckless accident that endangered a lot of people. We want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So you're going to commit some money to a fund. You're going to change the way that you do this, this, and this. So what do you think the odds are of that happening?
I think that, number one, I think they're slim to none. Number two, that even when they do this, and you've seen, first of all, there'll be a lawsuit, right? Probably.
Yeah.
It'll take.
Oh, for sure.
It'll take 30 years.
I mean, the waterways locally are poisoned. There's thousands of dead fish.
Right.
People's pets are already dying. So there's going to be a lot more fallout with humans. I mean, who knows what
the effect is going to be?
You're going to have to wait some time to find out.
So there'll be a lawsuit. It'll take forever, and they'll pay pennies on the dollar, right? Because that's what these class action lawsuits, they don't really make a difference, and they certainly don't make a difference to the bottom line of the company. So in order to be effective, and we talked about this, in terms of labor parlance as well, where there's a slap on the wrist, it's the same thing here, Ed, and that is, if you want to hit this company, right, for causing this accident or making sure that other companies think twice about short shrifting, then you really, really have to hit them. Like, you're out of business for the next 5 years. And by the way, free market, somebody else is going to take that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody is more fierce competitors than the railroads against each other.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, throughout American history, railroads just try to gobble each other up.
Like Thomas the Train.
Yeah, I mean, let's take this down a couple levels for you. Like Thomas the Train, just imagine if Thomas wasn't smiling, but he had a sad face because he was full of poison and he fell off the tracks and exploded,
And then Bob the Builder, who was only making $10 an hour and, got cancer.
It was 14 years old.
Bob the Builder's son had to
Timmy the Builder.
Timmy the Builder, good one.
Yeah.
He had to go clean up the mess.
Yeah. Well,
I like it.
These are the shows that our children, children will be watching one day unless we do something to stop it. Hi, I'm Ed Maher, and you just watched a clip from The Worker's Mic. You can listen every Sunday on 720 WGN at 8 o'clock in the morning, and also find us on YouTube at 9 o'clock in the morning.